Good morning, everybody. Happy schedule release Thursday. That's right. We are getting a schedule release later today. Probably going to see some schedule leaks over the course of the morning and afternoon. And then in the evening, we're getting the full thing. And again, I will be reacting to the schedule, do a live reaction to it on the Hawks Nest channel tonight on stream. Should be around 6:30 or 7. I'm going to do my best to avoid looking at anything on the schedule until then. I'm probably going to see a couple of things, just impossible to avoid at a certain point. But that's going to be what's going on tonight. Hope to see you guys over there. And yeah, it's a big day on the NFL calendar. But as we move towards the schedule release, I've been thinking about something over the last couple of days, and I've been thinking about specifically this offense. I've been thinking about the offense that we had last year. I've been thinking about the offensive players that we've added to the mix this offseason. I've been thinking about the fact that our offense is, with, I guess, a couple of exceptions, made up of young players who should be getting better. And I want to ask the question here. I want to ask, are the Seahawks, if you look at Geno Smith and Shane Waldron, consider those to be the two guys who are kind of being evaluated here in terms of their environment, in their situation. Are the Seattle Seahawks going into the season right now, are they doing a better job of giving their quarterback and offensive coordinator a chance to succeed than any other team in the league? And that's kind of a bold statement. But I want to go over this. I want to take a look at this offense so you guys can understand what I'm talking about here. And obviously, even though I try to follow the whole league, even though I do my best to follow the entire NFL, of course I'm going to see things through a Seahawks lens because they're the team I follow more than any other team. I follow the Seahawks more than any other teams combined, of course. So I want to know what you guys think about this. Am I missing something here? Am I not seeing things from an unbiased perspective? Am I not seeing the full picture here when I try to figure out how these Seahawks stand up? But these last few days, I've just been thinking about the circumstance, the environment, the supporting cast we're putting around our quarterback and our offensive coordinator. And I wonder, is it maybe not best in the league, but is it in that top three? And if I'm correct on that, and I do actually think I am correct on that, then what should the expectations be for those two guys? So you take a look at this roster outside of the quarterback on the offensive side of the ball. You've got a really good receiver room, and I was actually looking at some stuff earlier today trying to figure this out. I was looking at some stuff trying to really rank things in my mind. Who has better receivers than the Seahawks? Which teams have better wide receivers than the Seahawks, with DK Metcalf, who's put together a really, really historically impressive first 4 years in the NFL, Tyler Lockett, who's been churning out 1,000-yard seasons like a machine for quite some time now, and JSN, who even the people who didn't love JSN, and I was actually one of them, I did not love JSN the way some people did, acknowledged that he was, at least in terms of his use case, the best receiver in this draft, and someone who was expected to immediately be one of the best slot receivers in the NFL. Like, most teams only use three receivers most of the time. Occasionally there will be a fourth, or very rarely a fifth sprinkled in there. Now, admittedly, our depth drops off a cliff after those top three guys. But considering the fact that those top three guys are by far the most important guys on any receiver core, and the fact that most receiver cores do kind of drop off a cliff after the top three, you look at it and you wonder who has better receivers. Probably the Bengals, and that might be it. I think it's the Bengals, the Seahawks, the Dolphins, and the Eagles in the top four in some order. But I think the Bengals are one, but I'm actually starting to think the Seahawks might be number two. Then I'm looking at running back, and look, we've got a lot of unknown quantities in the running back room in terms of what they've done in the NFL, right? Charbonnet and McIntosh haven't played in the NFL yet. But K9 is coming off a really good rookie year. He should be a lot better in his second year in the NFL now that he's had a year of experience with NFL speed. Charbonnet was universally considered to be the third best running back in this draft, so we're adding him. And this is building on top of a running back room that last year, we went into the season with high expectations, but it didn't really work out that way. Penny played like 4 games and a quarter. Travis Homer did not play well at all. And you also had Kenneth Walker and DJ Dallas miss a little bit of time to injury. So bringing in K9, Charbonnet, McIntosh, who I actually do think will have an impact this year, and of course DJ Dallas bringing up the rear. Now, I'm not a big fan of DJ Dallas. I'm not going to act like he's anything great, but he's actually more productive than a lot of teams' fourth running backs. He's done more in the NFL than a lot of teams' number 4 running back. So if he's your number 4 running back, at least you know he can do something. Like, is that a top 10 running back group in the league? I kind of feel like it probably is. And then the tight end group, we are one of the few teams in the league that has a tight end room with 3 guys that have credible NFL production in their ledger. Fant, Disley, and Parkinson have all had some NFL production. You look at a lot of teams' tight end rooms, they usually have at least one guy in their top 3 who has either done nothing or done very, very little, or in some cases they're a rookie that was very, very lowly drafted and doesn't have big expectations, especially as a rookie. And you also occasionally have these guys who are only there for blocking and don't really give anything as in terms of receiving, like a Blake Bell type. But we are one of the few teams, one of the very few teams that have 3 guys who have proven they can be two-way tight ends in this league. They can block well and they can catch the occasional pass. Now, yes, you would probably rather have one Travis Kelce than Fant, Disley, Parkinson together. You would probably rather have George Kittle than Fant, Disley, Parkinson put together. I understand that, but you have to admit the Seahawks have a depth at tight end right now that I don't know if any other team has. And I would still rather have a hyper elite tight end than have these 3 guys. But do we have a top 10 tight end room in the league? I kind of think that we do. I would put like the Raiders and the Giants and the Chiefs and the Ravens above us and a few other teams as well, but I do think we're in that top 10 because of our depth and versatility. And then, of course, you got to talk about this offensive line. That's the one area where I think there's some question marks, but I think we had an okay offensive line last year, and it should be better. Cross and Lucas should take big steps forward because it's year 2, especially Cross because he was 21 last year, got beat up on occasion, but you would expect that. He's 21. So Cross and Lucas should take big steps forward. I think Damian Lewis was really good last year, and he'll probably be really good again this year. Remember, this is a contract year for him. I don't think he'll ever be elite, but he'll be a really good guard. And you've got Evan Brown, who cannot be worse. Cannot be worse than Blythe was last year. I think Evan Brown will be a non-trivial upgrade over what we had last year at center. Right guard, like I've said before, it's going to be a problem this year, but it was a problem last year, honestly. I don't really like Phil Haynes at right guard that much, but it's not any worse than what we were dealing with last season, and you can deal with one weak link on your offensive line, I think. I really do believe that it's kind of like defense in basketball. You can have one bad defensive player in your starting 5, like Tony Parker on the old Spurs, and you can get by because the other 4 guys can cover up. Last year you had too many weaknesses. This year you only have the one. I think it'll be a lot better. So I don't know if it's going to be a top 10 offensive line, but I think it'll be closer than people expect. I think it'll be an above average offensive line. It might even start broaching the area of good. And really, if Cross and Lucas take that big step forward that I'm anticipating, it can get to the top 10 much easier than you would expect. I mean, offensive lines tend to fluctuate pretty wildly around the league, and quality of play from offensive linemen goes up and down crazily. Like, look at the Saints offensive line. I think they've really fallen off lately. So I got to ask, if you're talking about a top 3 receiver core, a top 10 running back room, top 10 tight end room, and a top 10 offensive line, or let's call it top 12, I guess, are we talking about the best supporting cast around a quarterback and offensive coordinator in the NFL? I actually, over the past few days, I put together a ranking of every team's receiver core, tight end core, running back core, and offensive line core in terms of how I think they will be in 2023. I obviously it's a subjective ranking. A lot of people are going to look at it and completely disagree with it. By the way, I'm not going to show the whole thing on this video because it would take too long and it's not really important. I'm going to dump it on my Patreon and dump it on the members, third tier members community posts if anybody wants to look at it just to see what I ended up coming up with. Maybe I got something really, really wrong. That's possible. It's just something that I've been kind of coming up with the last few days, looking at depth charts and numbers and things like that, trying to figure out what are the rankings of each team's positional groups at receiver, tight end, running back, and offensive line. Then I took the average. I took the average of those four rankings. Now, this isn't meant to be concrete or anything because that implies that all four positional groups are equally important, which that's definitely not true. Offensive line is more important than tight end and wide receiver, especially when you're talking about a quarterback in the modern NFL. That's going to be more important than running back. But I took the average and I got a number, and basically the lower the number is, the better that team is doing at putting their quarterbacks in a position to succeed. And when it all came out, Seattle was number one. Now, if I were to actually weigh things on a little bit of a curve and place a higher priority on things like offensive line and a lower priority on a thing like a tight end, I do think that the Eagles would probably be number one because their offensive line is so good and their receivers are so good. But I got to tell you, I think Seattle is somewhere in that top four at the very least. They're right up there at the very least with the Niners and Eagles. And actually, I have to say, I love what the Falcons are doing, but I think they're right in that mix in the top four. So we may not be number one like this says, but we're in that top four. And I'm thinking about this because I'm thinking about what the offense was last year. The offense last year, with all those running back injuries, with only two hyper-reliable wide receivers because Goodwin was in and out of the lineup and didn't produce a ton. We actually didn't play him that much even when he was healthy. And an offensive line that was starting rookies at both tackle spots. And that offense was ninth in the league in scoring. Now, we did have a little bit of an easier schedule than we're going to have this year. I understand that. I understand that there were some things working in our favor in that regard. But I don't think the upgrade in schedule difficulty can justify a step back for this offense when you look at what they've added and what they are bringing to bear going into the season. So barring a massive wave of injuries that crushes the injuries that we saw in 2022, like we lose multiple receivers for extended periods of time, and we lose, Fant for extended period of time, and we lose offensive linemen for extended periods of time, seems to me that there's just a lot of pressure on Geno Smith and Shane Waldron to produce, I'd say, at least a top six offense. And if you look at Geno Smith's contract from this offseason, the contract he signed, you can get out of it after 1 year if you really want to. I don't think they will because there's still a lot of dead money and Geno's cap hit will not be that big next year or even the year after. But there is a way out if Geno Smith is not performing. And likewise, this is year 3 for Shane Waldron. He had 1 year that was okay. Last year was good. And this year's kind of like the, okay, show me you can be great year. So what I'm trying to get at here is there's a lot of pressure on Geno Smith and Shane Waldron to perform this year. Geno Smith is playing for his ability to stay on this team because that contract does have that out after 1 year. And Waldron, look, if he does well this year, he may get a head coaching job. He might. He came somewhat close to it, I think, last year. If he has a better year this year, he might go be a head coach somewhere. So those are pretty big stakes. Waldron, if he doesn't do well, we could move on because in our mind we gave him every opportunity to succeed and he couldn't take the team to the next level offensively. Like, that's a pretty big swing here. I do think that now in year 3 you can start to really judge him. And if the results are not good, you can be very critical of him. So I just want to say, I think this team has done a great job of giving those guys every opportunity to succeed. But there's now a lot of pressure on those guys to actually succeed. But do you guys think I'm right about this supporting cast being at least top 4? All right. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think. More videos coming later. Tonight's the schedule release. Hope to see you on stream.